In this video, we'll be visiting Seoraksan National Park again for some minimal long exposure photography. Good morning everybody and welcome back to Seoraksan National Park. I've arrived here at about 5:30 this morning before the sun comes up over the mountains, just in the hopes that I'd sort of be able to avoid everybody and hopefully there'd still be a bit of that mist left over from yesterday's typhoon. But unfortunately all of that's gone and we've got sort of clear skies and you know that sort of side light on the mountain, unless you're really up the top, you've already hiked to the peak, isn't particularly photogenic down here. But what I have found is in a little stream here, some passing people have built the little prayer towers out of rocks here in the water, and so I found one that's particularly interesting. It's got a really nice shape to it, and I'm going to spend the next sort of 20 minutes, half an hour before the sun comes up over the mountains here, just trying to photograph this in about 10 different ways and try and come home with, you know, some different expressions of this same subject. So while by no stretch of the imagination is this an epic subject, this is a good exercise to try and focus your attention on something and really try to draw the best out of that subject. Alright, so here is my subject. I don't know if you guys can really hear me over the water here, but basically this little tower of rocks in the middle of the stream here is what I'm going to try and photograph. And as you can see from this angle, we've got these nice sort of tendrils of water coming off. Those might look really good as a long exposure. We've also got a lot of sort of turbulence behind it, which might look good with a faster shutter speed. So what I'm going to try and do is compose this in a very simple way, so it's all just about this, because as you can see, I mean, we've got plenty of things in the background. We've got this sort of man-made wall here, we've got the mountain. I don't think any of that is really relevant to this, so we're going to get to just getting very simple shots of this. My first composition has this little pagoda in the top left of a vertical frame, and I'm just allowing all of the water to kind of run around it. I've framed it quite loosely so that I can get quite a bit of the whitewash, and I've experimented with a few different shutter speeds, but the one that I ended up liking was a 1/10 of a second. And basically that gives me still enough detail in the water that I can tell what it is, but it shows the movement really well. Any longer than that and the detail starts to fade away. Any shorter than that and you start to be able to see individual water droplets and things. My second composition basically has this guy in the top left corner again, and then I'm letting these two sections of water come out like this and just kind of lead you back into it. And again, I've settled on a 1/10 of a second, and I'll show you guys the other ones just to show you what I mean about the different shutter speeds for the water here, but I've settled on a 1/10 of a second as the one that I really like for this frame. So for my next I've decided that I won't continue to subject you to that awful composition. So the GoPro display mode is one of the things that's pretty high on my to-purchase list at this point, just so that I'll be able to see my composition as I'm working out in the field. I sort of underestimated how wide it was and sort of what it might look if I put it a little bit below there, so please forgive me for that. What I was discussing here was the desire to basically knock all of the texture out of the water using a long exposure and really focus you in on the stone tower in the water. Now, shorter shutter speeds, you know, half a second, a quarter of a second, weren't really able to do that. There was still enough texture in the water that it was kind of distracting and pulling you away from the stone tower. So I decided to grab my Haida M10 kit and put a 10-stop filter in front of the lens to extend my shutter speed out to full 30 seconds. Now, probably would have been better here to use something more like a 6-stop and be able to stop the lens down a little bit, but I don't actually have one of those for the kit, so it was a 10-stop, and that required me to open my aperture up a little bit, or I would have been dealing with exposures that was sort of, you know, 4 or 8 minutes long. Basically what that longer exposure does allow me to do though is completely knock all the texture out of the water and focus you in on just the stone tower. So let's jump back to me on location and check out the composition. I've got my composition now. It's always a good thing with strong ND filters to get your composition right and focus your camera before putting them on, especially in dull light like this where you're just not going to be able to focus through such a strong ND filter. So I'm going to switch this guy onto manual focus, and I'm just going to use the AF on button to focus on there. Now, I'm shooting this at f4 just to get myself that little bit of extra softness around the sides of this in front and behind of it. So I'll throw the 10 stop on now and we'll see how long the exposure is. The 10-stop filter gives me an exposure of 30 seconds at f4, and that gives me a really, really milky appearance to the water, especially because I'm shooting it backlit, so it's sort of reflecting the sky as well. I was initially shooting a 65 by 24 panorama, but I've decided to go back to the original ratio of the GFX, zoom in, and just make a very central composition of this. My microphone had, for some reason, unplugged itself here, and the audio was absolutely awful in this clip. But what initially drew me to this stone tower was actually the darker stone on top. So I wanted to, get a photograph that would display that clearly, show it sort of, I guess, in contrast with the other stones. And so I decided to get in close and try to look down at it from above the stone tower. When directly looking down on it, we lose a bit of the sense of the scale of the tower. We lose the fact that there are multiple rocks and they are stacked vertically. So I've decided to lower the camera just a little bit so I can see that again. What I am going to do is come down a little bit lower and just try and let these tendrils of water come towards the camera like that. And we'll have to deal with a few things in the background, so I'll move left and right and see what I can do with that. And hopefully not get the lens too wet in the process. One thing I did notice when I was sitting here watching this earlier is that this third rock from the water here actually gets some build-up on it, and a little droplet falls off it every now and again. So I'm going to try and zoom in and really try and capture that detail. In hindsight, as I look back at this image, I think this would have been a good opportunity to be able to make a couple of images with different shutter speeds. As you can see, the shutter speed I was using didn't really allow me to freeze the droplet midair, and it also didn't really remove any of the texture from the water, and so that texture is kind of competing with an already blurry droplet there. So what might have been a better option here would be to do something like maybe use a filter on the lens to allow myself that 30-second shutter again, completely just turn the water into basically a misty mess, and then take a separate shot just for the droplet falling at something like maybe a 250th of a second with a much higher ISO. And then what I could do is take those two in Photoshop and just paint in the droplet and have it really stand out. But didn't occur to me on location, and so yeah, hindsight is 20/20. For this frame, I was looking to get the tower in its environment, but when you go that wide, there's a lot to deal with. I have the man-made walls and the mountain in the background that's starting to get really bright as the sun comes up. I want to keep both of these out of the frame, so I've decided to go for a square crop to remove the man-made wall and also include the small waterfall in the background. This hopefully serves as an entry point into the frame, leading you across the whitewash and down to the tower. Again, after experimenting with a few different shutter speeds, I landed on a long exposure to draw attention to the pagoda. The only other thing I did was to extend my shutter speed to 60 seconds and stop my aperture down to f14 for a little more depth of field to accentuate the small waterfall in the background. The sun has just started to pop over the mountains and is about to sidelight this whole area. So I've just jumped in and grabbed a quick 65 by 24 panoramic shot. And what I've done is I've used this line of rocks in the middle of the river here to just form sort of a barrier across the top of the frame. And then I've had the stone tower here, that little black rock, I've carefully put it in a white area in the background because there's a couple of black rocks behind it as well. And then I've just let the water kind of run around it. So what I'm hoping I can do before the sun completely destroys this frame is grab my 10-stop filter and just do a long exposure of this as well. What you see me doing here is not just dancing to pass the time, but actually using my body to block the light. There was a shaft of light that had come through the trees and was causing a hotspot right next to the little stone tower, and I wasn't quite wide enough to be able to just block it all at once. So what I did was I wiggled back and forth in order to cover it all and just make sure that that area of the frame didn't get a hotspot and draw your eye. Alright, so I hope that's been interesting for you to watch me explore a very simple subject. Now, I wasn't planning to do this morning. I was hoping for a whole lot of, mist in the mountains and some really beautiful conditions. Seeing as that didn't eventuate though, I just basically changed direction and decided, well, it's really early in the morning. I want to take things slowly, so let's just enjoy where I am, dip my feet in the stream, and make some photos of a little stone tower. And so it was a really good exercise for me, and I hope that, things like just varying your angle, varying your focal length, varying your shutter speed, changing out some filters, sitting and just looking at an object and seeing how many different ways you can approach it. Even if they're not that varied, you can often just create a very different image that maybe draws a little something special out of the subjects. So I hope that I did get to 10 images. I did promise you 10 images, and if you do have a favorite from the set, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if there's something you feel like maybe I could have explored but didn't explore, let me know in the comments below. Again, thanks for watching, thanks for getting this far in the video, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers!